To be well educated, a 1992 federal study of college graduates, those who've gone through the 4 or more years nowadays that it takes to get your bachelor's degree, they surveyed those people. Of those people, 1/4 of them, graduates of college, of universities, had never studied history. Not one course. 40% of them had never taken a course in literature. These are the well-educated. What goes on in these palaces of learning? Palaces because of their price. These institutions of what used to be called higher education. At Harvard, for example, virtually no one gets a C anymore. No one. In 1992, A's were handed out like they were penny candy. 43% of the grades that were handed out at Harvard in 1992 were A's. Are there that many students that are doing excellent work? Or have the professors found an easy way to make friends with students? Hand them an A, doesn't cost the professor anything. Or, for example, what do we find if we made a visit to your average government-run school, elementary school? What's happening nowadays there? The discipline problems are much more severe than they were when you and I went to elementary school. You tell a second grader, for example, to go to the principal's office. And he may flip you the bird. He may flip you the bird. He may fold his hands, cross his chest, plop down into his chair. And what are you going to do? Are you going to actually physically touch him? Dream on. You can't even touch him. He'll sit there as long as he wants to. In today's government-run elementary schools, are your kids really going to hear stories with real values attached to them? Will they hear about the life of Marie Curie? Probably not. In fact, I wonder how many of the elementary school teachers could know anything about Madame Curie. The curriculum has been eviscerated by the threat of accidentally offending. The oh so tender, sensitive, quick to protest, the lobby and litigation type groups. By the time that every reference to cowboys and Indians, cow persons and Native Americans. Wait a minute. Cow, maybe that's the wrong gender. We should say steer persons and Native Americans. By the time you've done all that, the content has long vanished into the sunset. It may be time to educate yourself, to teach your children, to give them the values, the knowledge, and the wisdom that they may be truly well educated. Greek philosophy. We're talking about philosophy that was happening 300 to 500 years BC. And I want you to listen and see how much of that philosophy, back 2,400 years ago approximately, is still current today. Okay, I've got 3 minutes on Greek philosophy. I may leave out a little tad, but details are not the forte of television. Okay, there are 4 stepping stones the Greek philosophy. There's the Sophists, a group, and three philosophers, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. And Socrates taught Plato, and Plato taught Aristotle. Make these 4 stepping stones into 3, because we're going to identify Socrates and Plato together because their philosophies are virtually indistinguishable one from the other. Now, we've got 3. Let's look at each of those 3 in the minutes that we have left. The famous line from the Sophists, that group, was man is the measure of all things. Now, the Sophists originally started thinking about the outside world, nature, the universe. But they tried science with one little handicap. They never did any experiments, and they never did any observations. What a shortfall. It's as if Jim, John, and Joan were all sitting in a bar, and one of them says, birds never have green claws, because it wouldn't look right. And Joan says, well, the ancients wrote that they never had green claws, so we've got to believe it because of tradition. But none of the 3 ever decide to get off their bar stools and walk out into the light and look. Meanwhile, their science was worth nothing. So they looked at basically man. And what they saw was that there are no absolutes of what is good or bad actions. And there are people today who are sophists in their view of human beings. Now Plato and Socrates, what they said was, behind this world of shadow is the world of reality. And that world of reality is the perfect, the ideal world. And the world that we live in today is merely shadow and is not real. Sounds a little bit like Eastern religions. To Socrates and to Plato, if I draw a square, it's to you and me and everybody else in the whole world. We know it's not exactly right. But they would say it is only a foretaste of the real square that is inhabited in some other world. Aristotle, the last of the 3 stepping stones now, he said, poppycock. However you translate it from the Greek, ridiculous. The things that we touch and see are real. And he was one of the philosophers who got off his bar stool and looked at the world and did science. Where Plato was mystical and idealistic, Aristotle was scientific and analytic.
Like my shirt? It's a yacht.
Suppose our big shopping mall on the south side of Reno made some special arrangements with the city government. And when the doors open tomorrow, whoa, it will be a new shopping experience. The headlines in the full-page ad would read, "No more inequity in Reno. Enough for all. Ho! Come and shop and get what you need. Don't be held back by the fact that you haven't earned enough money to satisfy your every desire. And when the doors open tomorrow, any city resident may come and take whatever they want from any of the stores. Just show your proof of Reno residency. All the bills will be sent to the city government. At the end of the month, the total will be divided by the number of residents in Reno, and bills sent out equally to all the residents." Neat, huh? Yeah. Can you imagine what your bill is going to look like? I wonder, is that the way that the federal government operates today? Or is that the reason why socialism doesn't work. Literature, the heart of a liberal education. If I and my cohorts, who graduated from George Washington High School in San Francisco 33 years ago, if you're doing the calculations, I'm 50 years old. When we graduated, there was the potential of no more teachers, no more books, and all the rest. Not unless we wanted them. I've lost touch with a lot of my buddies of either sex since those graduation days. Sometimes I wonder where they are on the road of life. I had one friend who was really into mathematics. He gave me a calculus book when I was in about the 10th grade. When I was out jogging recently, I thought of him and thought, I wonder how far along he is in reading mathematics. He must be miles ahead of me. I knew at one point he took a PhD in mathematics, but I haven't had much contact with him in recent years. I read it, usually I've got a math book or two on the burner reading them, but I'm sure that he's much farther ahead than I am in mathematics. In a book by Paul Fussell, he writes that about a quarter, about 60 million of Americans are functionally illiterate. I don't remember those people in my high school graduation class, but the only time I might have come in contact with that quarter might have been in the PE class, since many of those individuals weren't in trigonometry or world history or third semester chemistry I took. Another quarter of adult Americans, says Fussell, are reading at generously what was called the 5th grade level. But most startling was his statement, quote, "The number who read as many as one book a year, with book defined as generously to include a quasi-porno romance and a how to seem better than you are manual, is 6% of the adult population." I wonder at the 35th reunion, when I go to it, if it's held, how many of my friends will brag that they've never read one of the great texts unless it was assigned. Maybe, I don't know what we're going to talk about. Maybe we can talk about how's their job, or their kids are doing, or their recent operations, or they can tell me about football. You worried? You worried, Opus? What about? You were thinking about all the people in our war that we had in Iran, and the stuff that may happen in Somalia and Haiti, and I wouldn't worry about those, Opus, because we didn't lose too many Americans in those countries. We lost a lot more, like in Vietnam, in the years and years that went on, and we lost a lot more in World War I and in Korea, in the years and years that we fought for those. Those wars are past. But can you imagine if we were to combine those three wars, those big ones, World War I and Korea and Vietnam, let's combine them all into 1 year. 1 year. All the deaths happening in 1 year. That's a lot of deaths. If the postman had to deliver all of those black-edged "we regret to inform you" letters from those 3 wars all in the same year, they might go on strike for all the letters they had to deliver. The New England Journal of Medicine, have you heard of that one? You subscribe to it? Okay, Opus, I didn't know that. I know you had celery in bed and the rest, but I didn't know you subscribed to the New England Journal of Medicine. That's, I guess you know, that's one of the most prestigious medical journals around, if not the most prestigious one, New England Journal of Medicine. And they had an article, I don't know whether you read it or not, that smoking kills 350,000 people every year in this country. 350,000 unnecessary deaths. Do you know how much that's more than the total of all of the Americans that died in World War I and Korea and Vietnam. And that happens each year. Please don't smoke, Opus. I want you around. English language usage. Whenever you use quotation marks, one of the semi-tricky things is to figure out where to put the punctuation that goes next to the quotation marks. Most of the time, they do, that it's common sense that will tell you where. If I write, this is a good sentence, I made it up myself. "Give me a door widget, those rubber things to block open the door." I've got a colon there. And the colon is not part of the quotation, and it sits to the right of the end quotes. Because colon means something that's coming is to explain. Let's try another sentence I made up. Common sense as to where you put the punctuation. Who wrote, "It's an ice cube winter"? Well, look at that. The question mark wasn't part of the quote, and it's outside the quotation. The quotation, "It's an ice cube winter," isn't an ice cube winter quote. No, he read a statement. "It's an ice cube winter." And so you put the question mark to the right of the end quote. But now, the not so common sense exception to the rule. Periods and commas go to the left of the end quotes, whether it makes sense or not. That's what all the books say. Whether it makes sense or not, they have to go to the left. Periods and commas. So, here it goes. Another sentence I made up. I made up this all by myself. He said, "Bring me the pasta." And the period is to the left of the end quote. And then another sentence, my final sentence. I made up lots of sentences today. She replied, "I certainly will," comma, quote, but then she headed to the racetrack. The comma goes to the left of the quotes. Periods and commas to the left of closed quotes, whether it makes sense or not. That's the right way to do it. Let me read you a little tiny passage from the most popular, best-selling, most editions book that has ever been written. And I read it to you. I want you to ask yourself, does this sound like it was written 2,500 years ago or today? Secondly, ask yourself as I read this, do you think that we can make a movie with this as a script? And if we do make a movie, Who shall we cast in the different parts? Think about it. It's fun to do. Today's New English version is what I want to read it out of. It's in Proverbs 7. Once I was looking out the window of my house, and I saw many inexperienced young men, but noticed one particularly foolish fellow in particular. He was walking down the street near the corner where a certain woman lived. This isn't your usual passages that you hear perhaps on Sunday morning in church, but it's got excitement to it. And then he was passing her house, and in the evening after it was dark, and then she met him, threw her arms around the young man, kissed him, looked him straight in the eye, and said, "I came out looking for you. Oh, I wanted to find you, and here you are. I've covered my bed with sheets of colored linen. I've perfumed it with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come on," she might have added, "big boy. Come on. Let's make love all night long. We'll be happy in each other's arms." Then she continued, "My husband isn't at home. He's on a long trip. He took plenty of money with him, and he won't be back for 2 weeks. So she tempted him with her charms, and he gave in to her smooth talk. Suddenly, he was going with her like an ox on the way to be slaughtered." All that right there in Proverbs 7. Today's New English translation, Good News Translation, today's English version. Surprising. I mean, you don't hear those kinds of stuff, but it'd be a great story. The great texts address the human condition, and humans haven't changed that much in the last 2,500 years.
Ever meet those people who are always talking about coincidences? Wasn't it such a coincidence that Mabel and I met at Cub Foods yesterday? Wasn't it a coincidence that the football score last year for this game was the same as this year? These people seem to take endless fascination in the coincidences that they note in their everyday lives. Having only had maybe one little course or less in probability and statistics, they may be able to tell you that there's only one chance in 1,000 that your license plate number, the 3 digits, would match mine. They're right. And they say, "Oh, they match. They're both 942. Oh, that's incredible." Oh, no, it isn't. No, it isn't fabulous. No, it isn't fantastic. It would be astounding if we didn't have those coincidences in life. Why? Why? Because there are zillions of possible coincidences that can occur just waiting to happen. The most famous example is that of matching birthdays. Now there are, say, 365 different days of the year. Let's skip the last day of February. 365 days possible from January 1 to December 31st to have a birthday. How many people would it take gathering them off the streets, one by one, and sticking them in an auditorium till there's half a chance that 2 of them have the same birthday? I want to take people. I take the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th, and so on. How many people would I have to take at random
in order for there to be a half a chance that two of them would share the same birthday out of the 365 possibilities. Oh, you think I'd have to have maybe 180 people? Or you think maybe I'd have to have 100 people? All it takes is 24 people gathered at random, and you have more than half a chance that two of those individuals will share the same birthday. The math is not that difficult. Or we put the first guy in the auditorium, and we write his birthday on the blackboard, July 8th or whatever it is. Now we snag the second person off the street. Now the easiest way in this probability calculation is to compute the chances that they do not match. Let's do that. The chances that the second person off the street doesn't match the first guy, there's 364 out of 365 possibilities that they won't match. We've got the two people in the auditorium. Now let's take a third person off the street and see if that person matches either the first or the second. The chances that that person does not match are 363 chances out of 365. With the next person and the next person, till finally we get down to the 24th person, and the chances that he won't match the other 23 are 342 out of 365. Now the chances that none of them match is to multiply together those fractions one after another. You can do it on your calculator. And when you multiply those together, you find out there's less than half a chance, less than 0.5, that they don't match. Which means that there's more than half a chance that two birthdays or more match among those 24 people taken at random when there's 365 possible birthdays. An easy example. Coincidences are not that rare.
The Night Has 1,000 Eyes by Francis William Bourdillon. The night has 1,000 eyes, and the day but one. Yet the light of the bright world dies with the dying sun. The mind has 1,000 eyes, and the heart but one. Yet the light of a whole life dies when love is done.